So we're going to kick off today with our industry deep dives, covering 3 amazing fireside chats with industry leaders, covering financial services, retail, and the software as a service industry. So we're going to dig into what's disrupting, what's innovating in those industries. So let's dive into what's front of mind in the software as a service or SaaS industry and explore how, I guess, technology and innovation are creating opportunities for those in the industry. And so I'd like to welcome my guests here today, Sarah Thompson, Chief Product Officer at eRoad, and Rob Cleghorn, Engineering Director at eRoad. Welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Maybe Sarah, would you be able to share a little bit around your experience in the industry?
Sure. So I've been in the industry for a very long time now, 1999, 2000 really. Originally working with SaaS platforms around health and performance in London for about 10, 11 years. And then came back and worked for Orion Health, both on the implementation side of the business and the product side of the business. And now I've been at eRoad for about the last 3 or 4 years. So really fun and interesting journey, and it's a great industry to be in.
Absolutely. Rob, how about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been in the software industry, building software for about 30 years, and from here in New Zealand, also just did a decade working in investment banks in the UK. But yeah, back home in New Zealand, and yeah, really love building teams and building high-performance software engineering, and that's led me well into this role at eRoad, Engineering Director, where we have a lot of engineering, a lot of data, and a lot of problems to solve.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Maybe Rob, if I just start with you perhaps, and maybe if you could share a little bit around the trajectory that the SaaS industry is taking at the moment, and maybe any trends that you're seeing.
Yeah, I guess for me it's really about the competitive landscape and the breadth of competition that we have, and it's quite easy for small startups to get to scale really large, and all the cloud technology and the platforms that enable that to happen. And so probably looking at the smaller companies and their little niches, and really turning the focus from what you don't want to reinvent the wheel, but how do you partner, and how do we work in that ecosystem together?
Yeah. Maybe Sarah, just for you, maybe at a high level, if you could start us out there in terms of what do you see as the future directional state of the SaaS industry, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's come such a long way, and it's so supported by everything that's happening from an AWS perspective and from an Azure perspective, and exactly what Rob said really. It's so easy now to sort of start up and to be able to use all of that capability and get to market much, much more quickly. If I look at it from a product angle, I'm so sort of excited these days about the fact that anything that happens on your SaaS portal, you can track. Right? And so you can really look at what your customers are doing, what their behaviour is. You can look at when they drop off, where in the journey they drop off, how engaged they are. You can bring that into all the conversations you're having, both with your customers from a customer service perspective, but you can also use that from a product development perspective. And so you can start to use your platform in the way that you're using your platform to deliver data products to your customers. And so for me, from a product development perspective, I find that really exciting.
What about cybersecurity? How does that come into your thinking?
Well, it's always been there. So from my perspective, working for 20 years in healthcare, it's a huge part of what you have to think about, because healthcare records are so important and so attractive on the dark web. And so you just have to be building that in. I mean, I know that Rob can talk about it more from a technology perspective, but it has to be in your purview. It has to be in your operations.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of in some cases it's more of a question of when, not how, you'll be attacked, and it's just an ongoing challenge, and we have to be really vigilant, and we have to get the basics set up and continually get that into our culture, that how important that it is to do things the right way and architect things well, and follow the best practices and approaches for dealing with it.
Yep, I think a lot of all SaaS companies have started at some point as a startup, and they've needed to scale and adapt quite quickly. How is technology supporting SaaS companies? What are the key things that technology is doing to support those SaaS companies to actually scale and adapt?
So the cloud partners are really ahead of the game. They're innovating at a ridiculously crazy rate. And so it's a real challenge to keep up with them and understand how their technologies and new services and products that they can bring will help us and then benefit us. And so, but we're really following the coattails of those and some of the open source projects. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge to keep up. But the way that you build things now, you're not reinventing the wheel anymore. You're just trying to find services that work with you, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you go on to the features that really add value to your product and to your customers.
Yeah, okay.
And there's so many tools that help that. You know, you've got AWS and Azure and Google, but you also have, you know, Salesforce from a customer services perspective. You've got all of the different, again, analytics tools that you can look at. There's just a whole community of things that you can draw upon to help you get to market faster and help you to be successful.
So I guess, you know, across the world at the moment, climate change is probably clearly one of the biggest issues facing humanity, right? And I'd be interested if you can share a little bit around, you know, climate change and sustainability concerns in terms of the SaaS industry and what the impact is in terms of from a business and operations perspective.
Absolutely. Sustainability is one of the things that we're really passionate about at eRoad. It's in our purpose, safer and more sustainable roads. And we look at it in two parts. So first, there's are we sustainable as a company? Are we doing everything that we can from a climate change perspective? And so we are measuring how we produce our products, how we package our products, how we look after the life cycle of our products. We report on that annually. It's one of our investor reports that goes out, and we look at that very, very closely. We have those reports signed off by Toitu here in New Zealand, who do an amazing job on that. And then we also have to look at how we allow our customers to be more sustainable. I mean, we work with massive fleets, and obviously there's the carbon emission that comes with that. There's the ability to decarbonise. There's a lot of use cases around moving to EV vehicles, but there's also a lot you can do to reduce your carbon on an existing combustion engine vehicle as well. And so we are doing lots of different trials in that space, and we kind of talk to lots of our different customers, and they fall into three basic categories. So you have your pre-contemplators, and that's the group that really aren't thinking about doing much or doing anything. And that group is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And then you've got the contemplators, and so they're starting to think about it, but they don't know where to start, and they really need help and support. And then you've got the sort of starting to try things group, and that's a really, really small group, but there are some trials and things that are starting to happen. And I've just got to say that there is so much opportunity in this space. We've really seen this pick up ethically from a New Zealand perspective, but hugely starting to pick up in the US as well. And it's a real opportunity for technology and problems to come together and find new solutions. In the US, they say green is green. And so you can look at this as, how do I get more miles per gallon, or how do I get a better route, and how do I make my business more profitable and more green at the same time, because often it's about reducing waste. And so I just find this really, really fascinating, and there's so much opportunity in this space.
Rob, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I guess on the tech side, you know, as we look at eRoad as a company and how we run our software, you know, there's kind of like a hidden thing that goes on. We've got our office, and you know, people running around. What they don't see is the thousands of servers we've got running over all different data centers around the world, and they're using, you know, potentially dirty electricity. So the clouds again are leading the way here in terms of offering sustainability, in terms of you know, how and when you use the servers, and which servers come from data centers that have green electricity, and trying to make sure that we're getting where we can into a better place in terms of how we use that technology and how we you know, run our servers off it.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. So maybe if we just switch up a little bit now and think about emerging technologies that are coming out there in the horizon for the SaaS industry. Quite often, you know, industries will look at parallel adjacent industries and what they're doing for influence around what innovation they might bring. But is there any sort of tech trends or pieces that have influenced your guys' thinking in terms of from other industries?
So from a product perspective, we're putting more, we have a in-vehicle gateway now, and it connects to lots of different kinds of sensors. And so we're putting more and more sensors on a vehicle to look at the temperature, look at whether the door's opened. We've got camera sensors on board now too, and so we're using more and more edge processing to be able to create an event and send that up to the cloud and create an action off the back of that event. And so that's kind of one of the things that we're doing quite a lot with.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is, there's huge amounts of data, particularly in the video space, where we can process and do some large-scale processing and get some really awesome AI models, shrink those models down and then put them back on the devices and run them on the devices on the edge. And that enables us to be really responsive and have some really, really awesome things available in our product suites to move fast. And that's probably one of the biggest changes we've seen in the last year or so in terms of being able to do that and get that data and make the most out of it.
Fantastic, fantastic.
For our customers, what's great about that is they can now react in real time. If you think about a full truckload of strawberries rolling down the road, that's probably worth about $250,000 US. But if you think about a whole thing of scotch rolling down the road, that's a lot more expensive. And so you want to know if that trailer's been opened, right? And you want to know if you've lost that trailer load, or you want to know if that's been kept at temperature. And so being able to act in the moment is really, really important.
Yep.
There's just a whole treasure trove of work that can be done, combining edge and machine learning.
Yeah, you're right. With those sensors in the past, there's no point waiting overnight and getting that notification. It's too late. So it's amazing what those parallel technologies can actually bring. I think as over the last number of years, many SaaS companies have been looking at revenue and acquiring new customers as sort of that key metric, especially when they're starting up. I think as the landscape sort of changing a little bit from a macroeconomic sense, and many are starting to look at profitability. Would you be able to share a little bit in terms of, how maybe SaaS companies can actually utilise technology to actually help on the profitability side?
Yeah, I guess a lot of it is those services that we can now leverage from our cloud partners. Go back even only 10 years, and there's a lot of software and stuff you had to build just to get some basics foot in the door on some of these things. And now with these services, we can actually just leverage a service, and in a day you've got all that stuff done, and now you move on to building on top of those things, and that can just be so effective in terms of cost. Because often you look at the cost of running and using those services as being reasonably high, but actually you look at the cost of building them in the first place and maintaining that, it's way more. And you get away from that and start leveraging those different things, and it really does help the bottom line.
Yeah.
And I think people have to recognise now as well that the landscape has changed completely from an investment perspective. And so, we've had the heady pandemic moments of low interest rates and quite a lot of cash in the environment. And now we've really got to make sure that we are delivering and that we're creating that profit, and that we are very, very sustainable in terms of the business that we're operating in. And so I think if you're not thinking about that right now, you absolutely have to be, because the environment that we're going into for the next couple of years is just so significantly different to what we've been operating in and have seen over the last few years. And so you've got to be looking in every part of your business, keeping the customers that you have, making sure that all of the technology that you're running is as efficient as possible, so that you're creating that leverage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you both, Sarah and Rob, for coming and joining us at ClearPoint Unlock. It's certainly been enlightening and really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.